the who, what, why, where, how, and when of matters under investigation. The information comes from the sources, from three sources: people, objects, and documents. No one gonna sit here and tell me that we have all the information to go forward. No one can tell me that. We don't have that information. We need that information. Most people know the right thing to do in a situation, but they come to accept watered down decisions and inconsistent conduct because of the phrase, "It depends on the situation." It depends on the situation? Because I heard continuously that the city always works with the county on certain issues, and that's true. That's true. We want the facts to see if this case hold true, and then Ms. Appeal's name will be clear, and the city manager's name will be clear. So I think we need to go forward, and I think that when we start telling ourselves of our conduct is right under circumstances, when the circumstances change, so do the conduct. All of a sudden, this or that and how becomes the right thing to do. And we can't go back on that. If we're going to just halt the investigation in its spot, that means that let's throw away the charter. Let's eliminate the part in section 2-115 to talk about investigation. Let's eliminate all that. Let's eliminate all that. And that we can't do. I think that all we asking for, and the only issue I have is that the guy that's doing the investigation, I did my homework on him. And in part, you said it right. He is a municipal defense attorney. Mr. Peel doesn't need a defense attorney. I actually believe if all the facts come out, either be on, there's nothing that we're going to do, whether we say he's accused of come to light as being true or not. This council, and that's one thing they got right, it comes back to council. And whoever investigate, all they do is come back with the facts. We're not asking for their opinion or anything. This council said, okay, he's exonerated, then we can go forward. Or say, okay, he's found guilty, then what we do then? We can choose to do nothing. So I don't understand why all of a sudden we want to just throw the investigation away. I don't flip-flop. And I don't expect this council to do the same thing. Unanimously, that's without flaw. Every member of this council voted to have the investigation, including the one that was under investigation. And again, I'm not. This is not no witch hunt, and the NAACP didn't have anything to do with it because we made the choice. And like I said, the only thing that I have a problem with is the person doing the investigation. Just like, and Mr. Peel had this right. He said the NAACP should not pick an attorney because they're the one that made the charge. He's right. So we pull that. And I use the same argument. We should use the attorney that we have because he have defended the city before on a municipal claim, on a claim. So it's the same thing. So we have to move forward. My vote is to go forward. I do not make a decision after prayerfully considering it and then back off my decision. And what's embarrassing and hurting to me is that all of a sudden it has nothing to do. If Mr. Peel and city manager is clear, it makes us look good. We followed our charter, we did the right thing, step by step. And most people will find this amazing. Not too often, can I get your name? Not too often do Councilman Baker, Tony Steinmetz, Ms. O'Donnell, and I agree on anything. And you know this, see the minutes, but in this case, I agree wholeheartedly. I believe they to be correct. And I would not vote to rescind the investigation. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. I'm going to pass the gavel over to Ms. Hummer. Ms. Hummer made the statement that I had directed the city manager to write the grant. And Mr. Horton, in his opening statement, talked about the fact that I and my, I don't remember the exact word, consorts had requested that the grant be written for the charter school. One thing I want everyone to understand is at no time did I ever ask the county to write the grant. for the charter school. As Mr. Steinmetz said, that was a decision that was made by the county commission. They voted on what they wanted to put in that grant. I never had a conversation with any of them. Never did I ask any of them to put anything in there about the charter school. That was something they did on their own. And they did it, I'm sure, because Mr. Dixon has been involved with this as well. Who happens to be the chairman of the county commission. So I want to be clear on that. That's not something I did. Had nothing to do with that appearing in that grant. The other thing I want to say is that I also am not so concerned for myself, because I'm an old guy. While this may have tarnished my legacy in the eyes of a few, it has not had potential damage for me that it has for Mr. Wilson, who is still, I think, in the prime of his career. And when you Google his name on the internet, about the fifth thing that pops up is that he's under investigation. And that's a matter that needs to be cleared up. And it needs to either be cleared up by this council exonerating us, as Mr. Connolly indicated, or it needs to be cleared up, as Mr. Brooks has stated, by conducting an investigation. Now, I don't know how many investigations you've been in. One of the things that the road you started down, you're going to spend $600 before this person ever arrives. Because the moment they get in your car, you mean he's going to be running. And if he's any good at all, you're going to spend a day for him just to get ready to come. So you're going to hit $4,500 before you turn around. One estimate, a lawyer friend of mine, was you're looking at about $20,000 to $25,000 for this thing. I don't know if that's going to be true or not, but Mr. Brooks was very, very good in outlining the procedures of investigation, and you want it to be very thorough. So, but again, I think that horse has left the barn. Thank you. Mr. Steinmetz.
I'd just like to follow up on something that was said earlier in terms of history investigations. The investigation of council was not something that was directed by anybody other than the DA. That had to do with a vote on the zoning issue. Someone went to the DA and indicated to him that something had gone not in accordance with Hoyle's rules. The DA started that investigation. The FBI conducted that investigation, and nothing came out of that investigation. Everybody on council was interviewed, and I'm sure if they'd have found something, then something would have come out of it. That was not something we did to ourselves. There have been 2 other investigations that the council has held. In both cases, the city attorney did the investigations. I made the motion in both cases to have the investigations. The first one had to do with the decision by electrical department to purchase items for inventory following council's decision not to continue to pay for installation of equipment at new developments. The question of why it went ahead, it had happened. In the end, what happened was that the policy decision was not communicated clearly to staff. Staff went ahead without checking with the manager. And appropriate process changes and remarks were made. The second one had to do with the handling of the zoning and of Hayes Metal, the salvage yard of the Second Ward, and the role of the planning department, and whether they conducted themselves in accordance with all the rules of the planning department. Again, Mr. Morgan looked into that, came back to us, told us what had gone on. We directed the city manager to do a few things, and there was some action taken with regard to the planning staff. In terms of Mr. Brooks, the mayor brought forth to council that we need to investigate Mr. Brooks because of a possible alleged violation of state law regarding disclosure of confidential personnel information. Council chose not to investigate that, and that ended that. This is the first one where, well, it's not the first one, it's the third one. This is the first one, though, that I've been involved with where the attorney is doing the investigation. As I see it, we have 2 paths. Mr. Donnelly was nice enough to offer us the exoneration path. If you're going to call it the investigation, you need to pass a resolution of exoneration and been no finding of any wrongdoing by the mayor or the manager. You can't find anything else. If you call it the investigation, you got to exonerate, and that's my mind. If you don't choose to do that, then you have to investigate. You still have the choice not to use this gentleman that we talked about hiring and to go ahead and have the city attorney look into it. All right, his fees are already within the city budget. His time is already accounted for pretty much, and his ramp-up time is a lot quicker than anybody else's would be. So I see those as your three alternatives. Pass a resolution of exoneration, cancel investigation. You continue to investigate, go with the attorney. Continue to investigate, go with Mr. Morgan. I can't vote to not do the investigation if you're not going to exonerate.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First of all, no one at any one point in given time assassinated the mayor or the manager's character. No one did that. I think it's a common thing that everyone realized that the investigation was unanimous. No one jumped on any bandwagon. Matter of fact, the night we voted on this, I didn't say not a word. The mayor and the manager welcomed the investigation, and we went forward. Secondly, Mr. Morgan has stated that he would not feel comfortable. Councilman Steinmetz, Mr. Attorney Morgan stated that he, Bill, Attorney Morgan, did you state that publicly? That you would not feel comfortable conducting the investigation?
That's certainly true.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Furthermore, no one has accused him of doing it. So how in the world are we going to exonerate? How? The council hasn't accused them of doing anything. So how are we going to exonerate? We're saying regardless of what's on the, regardless of whatever it is, that it's time to move beyond this chaos. Because that's all it is, a bunch of mess, and the people who are going to work together are going to work together regardless. And the people who are not going to work together, they're going to keep doing the same crap y'all always done. But, and I'll say this one last thing, if you want to go along with it, then fine. But we're not going to use the one that you've chosen, because the one, and John, I want you to get this one, because the one you've chosen is tainted. So if you want to go along with it, fine, we'll go along with it. But we're not going to go along with the one that you've chosen, knowing that he's already represented the city. So it's fine. If y'all want to spend all this money just to clear somebody's name, then that's fine. Because either way, the public has already had their opinion anyway. But you cannot change public's perception at this point in a given time anyway. So we're going to move forward, then we can move forward. We're not going to move, I'm not going to vote to move forward with the one that's already tainted. Thank you.
Mr. Strong, let's see, Mr. Strong.
Councilman King, we do need to clear their names. It's been all over the press, it's on the internet. We have the power to clear their names. That's our responsibility as a council. And if we back off the investigation, how do we clear their names? We don't. It's out there. We did it. Now, we voted, I take myself out of that we in this situation, we voted for an outside attorney for an investigation. I felt all along if we were going to investigate that our attorney could do the job. That's what we pay him for. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Baker.
When I stated that the city, back to the money thing, the city pays when it's an investigation of council, brought by council or a governmental entity, or an investigation of individual council brought by council. We voted for this, unanimously we voted for this investigation at the insistence, not the asking, but the insistence of the NAACP, we demand an investigation. That's what brought it to council. It wasn't council bringing it to itself. It was an outside private entity or nonprofit or, a group. It was not council on council. And that's why I say they drove that vote. They drove that motion. We jumped on it. We all agreed unanimously to clear the names. Well, some of us, that was our intent. Some others wanted, I don't know, you say it's not a witch hunt, maybe it wasn't. But that's, no. We need to clear the names, and like Mayor Peel said, Mr. Olson is in the prime of his career. He does not need to go explaining this investigation anytime he has a job interview or an interview with the press or any other kind of interview. He needs to be clear, it needs to be wiped clean.
Summer.
Yes, we should have had this meeting a long time ago, and I think that we need to accept some blame too, we the council, because it didn't bother us in the beginning, and now we have this enormous thing facing us, and the two individuals unfairly have it facing them also. But I think this is a good thing that we're coming up with several different options. And our city charter says that if we find something that we feel needs to be investigated, we direct the city attorney to do that, and Mr. Morgan, you can't turn us down.
Right, I was
You
asking,
might be uncomfortable,
Right.
but so are we.
and certainly, yes, ma'am.
And so I think council, I think another thing we need to consider here is, I applaud you, Mr. Horton, for saying that we need to rescind it and move on, but what does move on? That's too general. What does that mean? No, we have to have a goal at the end of it, and we have to, in order to clear everything up. So is council going amenable now to having the city attorney do this investigation? And it goes back to this board as a full discussion with whatever you find. That's the way it goes anyway. I'm not willing to spend this money to do this, and I know the taxpayers are very upset about it, so there is another way to do it. And I think that he sits over there. Thank you.
Mr. Gordon.
Okay, first of all, I've got a lot to say. I've been listening and trying to take in. I respect each and every one that's up here on this dais. I respect the city attorney, the manager, councilors, the mayor. But I am sitting here because the constituents and the residents of the 4th Ward voted me to hold this seat. I don't owe any of you any type of explanation on what I do or how I do it. If I vote today, I'm voting because I feel that that's what the residents want me to do. But I will say, because someone asked the question, why the change? When I go out into the community and I hear people saying, well, y'all is about to spend all this money, you already know what happened. And I feel that even though we cannot use necessarily what the Daily Advance has reported, we have the two individuals that are being questioning on their action. We have them here. We have the capability of not having to go through any outside source, but we have the capability of asking them questions ourselves, because at the end of the day, we are the ones that's coming up with the opinion. And that's how I feel. Mr. Brooks and some other ones alluded to the fact of money being used in the past and whatnot. I have nothing to do with it. I wasn't on council then. I didn't vote for those type of decisions, but I'm here now. And the only way, as I can see, the handwriting is on the wall about canceling the investigation. But the only way I will agree and vote to move forward with it, I'm definitely not going to vote for a resolution clearing anything up, because from my interpretation of what I see, I don't see any way how any attorney, any investigator can bring back that, you know, they were not wrong in what they did. However, the only way I will agree to any type of investigation is if once it comes back, and if the mayor is deemed to have operated wrong in the city manager, that we censor the mayor and we fire the city manager. If they're so gun-ho on their names being cleared, because I have a problem with just spending the money. That's my problem. So if we're gonna go out there on a limb, I want these persons to know that if it comes back, or when it comes back, that if they did something wrong, that's how I'm gonna move forward. Thank you.
Brooks?
Yeah, I've been on council almost 8 years now, and I ran because I realized that I'm a servant, and I share with any elected official, not just this council. Once you are an elected official, you are not your own. You are a servant. You are a servant. You're not your own. You are a servant. I don't go against the wishes. I know oftentimes you see me go to the shop, but what you got to understand is that I'm saying what the people in the 3rd Ward that have kept me there for 8 years are telling me to say behind camera that they won't come up here and say themselves. Because sometimes I totally disagree with them, but I only have one vote. So what I do is that I vote their conscience. So okay, so I understand I am not of my own. And the thing with the NAACP keep coming up. NAACP did not demand an investigation. They can demand all they want to demand. This council makes the decision whether to investigate or not, and that's what we did unanimously under the graces of those that are being investigated. I don't understand what the problem is. And yes, the name need to be totally clear, because if there's anybody name that have been splattered in the paper on the negativity, it's my name. Their name need to be cleared. My name been in the press. I go to Edenton, and they know who I am because of the press. I went to Virginia, and they know who you look familiar. They know who I am, so I understand the clearing of name. I really do understand. And with the investigation that, you know, Mr. Bill, you talked about the numbers, what it would cost the attorney and stuff, and that's okay. We can't put the numbers out there as a fear factor. We can't do that, because, and I said even still, it's not an attack, and whether you did it out of good faith or not, that's not what I'm questioning. When you made the motion initially, and the minutes in there, you made, and then didn't nobody say anything, and then Tony picked it up and Gene seconded it. That's okay. That's okay. But what I'm saying is, the issue of monies, how much it would cost, did not come up. Now all of a sudden, everybody trying to make a lot of money. Let me tell you something. We paid over $175,000 to build showers for boaters. Now we talk about $600, $500, like it's a big animal. We are trying to sell the homeless shelter. The homeless shelter. But yes, we're talking about what the cost of an investigation is. You know, and someone said it correctly according to the charter that we can have Mr. Morgan to investigate. But if he feels uncomfortable with it, let's go with that. He's uncomfortable with it. Some of the decisions that Mr. Morgan have made, and he'll tell you as an attorney, it's just his opinion. You can take this same item and have 10 attorneys and you might have 10 different opinions. Mr. Morgan understands that. I'm sure he does. Mr. Morgan understands that. And so what happened, because there's a lot of issues that came before council on a legal matter, and Mr. Morgan gave his opinion, and we sent it to the Institute of Government or the League, and they came out with something totally different what your opinion was. It doesn't mean Mr. Morgan was wrong. It means they had a different opinion. So I don't blame Mr. Morgan saying he don't want to investigate. I don't blame him at all. I'll stay as far from that as east is from the west. Trying to figure out what I had up here. Oh, with the SBI investigation, I called the SBI. I really called the SBI. I got some opinion over it. I called the SBI. And I beg to differ. This council was investigated. It wasn't just, it might have been in part what you said, Mr. Simons, but it was more to it than that. It wasn't just the zoning. I talked to the SBI. So all I'm saying is that I believe that as I said initially, that it needs to get behind us. We can't exonerate people because we don't have the who, what, when, where, and how. We don't have all that information. And this what happens. Let's say we have a brainstorm in which we sometimes make bad mistakes, and we exonerate this council without the who, what, when, where, and how, and talking to people and documents and all that other stuff. And we exonerate the city manager and the mayor. You know what? That will forever be over their head. That will be forever be over their head. Because I know I'll bring it up from time to time too. I'll say, well, we cleared you, but no one brought any investigative facts to us. That's not good. And I've been in this situation several times, so I can say this. I believe that they need to be totally clear. It need to be investigated. They need to be totally clear. And I don't want to look wishy-washy as a county to go this way and that way because it confuses the people and it messes with our integrity. You know, if we had a divided vote to investigate, if it was 4 to investigate and 4 not to investigate, I said, well, you know, that's kind of tight. The whole council, everybody. The only issue we had was not to let NAACP pick an attorney. And I gave you praise for that, Mr. Mayor, because I said that it's only fair. It's only fair because they the one requested or asked. They didn't demand. They requested or asked for an investigation. Now, I feel the same way with this attorney that we have here now that we try to have the investigation. I feel the same way. I think he's tainted. I believe he's tainted. So the alternative is what? We need to go forward, but what is the alternative? If Mr. Morgan feels uncomfortable with it, and I don't blame him, I believe this guy's tainted just like Mr. Field believed the NWSP wouldn't be fair because they called the investigation. That's where we are. And then, like I said, not too often, and I say this and I'm through for the night, not too often will you see Councilman Baker, Tony Stamax, and Donnelly and me in the same arena. You won't see that too often. But what I care about is that they understood their integrity is involved too, not to flip from one side to another. And one thing I can say about Gene, me and Gene argue all the time, everybody knows that. But I can say one thing about Gene, Mrs. Councilwoman Baker, when she have a thought, I don't care what you say, she sticks with it. And that's what she's doing now. She's just like, listen, we don't know how it's going to turn out. We really don't know. Really don't know. None of us know. But I do believe, Mr. Mayor and City Manager, that we don't need to exonerate you. We need to go on with the investigation. Your name need to be cleared. CLEARED. I think I spelled it right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
We have been discussing this now for 58 minutes.
Right.
Motion on the floor. Mr. Johnson?
Last couple things. I agree with Ms. Hummer. Even if the attorney's not comfortable, you have a job to do, and I'll assume you'll do it. That being said, I would also point out to the members of council who say there were no accusations, we could not have proceeded unless we had a written charge of violation of certain sections, which we did have presented by the NAACP. The charges have been preferred, and by agreeing to have an investigation, council acknowledges that there may have been an alleged violation. So to say that we don't agree there's an alleged violation, or there might have been one, is wrong. And third, now I'm hearing that this lawyer is tainted. The information on this lawyer was available to us 2 weeks ago. And we could have gone with the more expensive spread, which is a $250 an hour lawyer, which means you're going to spend $9,000 for your first 30 hours. So, you know, however you want to slice this thing, I think you need to look at where you're at. You want to do it, have an investigation, you need to have a resolution of exoneration. Because you accepted allegations of violations of the city ordinances as being presented and true, and voted to have an investigation. If you say you're not going to investigate, you need to say then the allegations are proven untrue. All right, you need to clear the person, you need to clear the record. And lastly, I think that if you're going to exonerate, that takes care of this whole issue. There's no investigation, there's no attorney to be paid, Mr. Morgan doesn't get put in the hot seat, we don't have to worry about that stuff. If you're not going to do that, and I've heard people say there's no way I'm going to do that, you cannot make a decision unless you have a hearing. Once we get the investigation, our city code, our ordinances specifically say we have to have a hearing. And it has to be done in a quasi judicial manner, which means you have to have a court reporter, which you're gonna pay for, which means you have to have counsel, and the two persons are allowed to have counsel. And they're allowed to ask witnesses questions and to